Welcome to Bookings and Bottles, the podcast for travel professionals who like a little bit of wine and a lot of wisdom. I'm Simone Snedorf, your host, the founder of Ontologic, Workflow and Habit Specialist. Today, I'm joined at the table by a very special guest, Henry Jung. He supports SMEs in South Africa with legislative compliance and also helps with reducing the administrative burden of South African compliance landscape. Basically, they act as an extension of your HR function and help businesses to mitigate risk and increase HR efficiencies. Henry, welcome to Bookings and Bottles.
Hi, Simone. Thank you for having me.
It's so exciting. We've known each other for quite a while, and I'm so excited to have you on this podcast to speak about HR because when it comes to the travel industry, there's a lot of compliance when it comes to the environment and sustainability, which obviously makes sense. If there's no environment, there's no travel. And there are so many details that travel agents really need to consider. I'd love to start with the basics. What exactly does HR compliance mean for the travel industries or in any industries look like?
That's a very good question, Simone. So, when someone starts a business, especially in the travel industry, which is obviously the backbone or one of the backbones of the Western Cape's economy as well, you start with a passion, something you enjoy, something you know a lot about, but there are these missing aspects that is not part of an MBA degree or an entrepreneurial qualification, and that's the compliance aspects and the HR aspects. So compliance in the travel industry is really about ensuring that people who make the travel experience possible are treated fairly, that they're treated safely and in accordance with the law. So founders invest a lot of time and money into their passion, and unless they have an HR degree, they're often unaware of the compliance risks in their businesses. In South Africa specifically, it means complying with labor legislation such as the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, the Labor Relations Act, Employment Equity Act, and it also includes ensuring that staff are paid correctly, have proper employment contracts, that they receive appropriate leave benefits and work in safe environments. So there's a full, all-encompassing spectrum of compliance matters that have to be considered when we go through the issues and the laws and the acts that govern how we support our employees. So for the travel sector specifically, there are additional considerations. Many businesses operate outside of traditional hours. As an example, employees may work weekends, public holidays, you have seasonal schedules. So employers need to have clear policies and systems to manage these arrangements fairly. The BCA is the foundation, but then there are specific sectoral determinations that specifically govern hospitality that sit on top of the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. So compliance also extends to skills development through initiatives supported by the CAT Theatre, where companies can apply for grants towards upskilling their employees, bursaries, etc. There's transformation aspects through, broad-based Black economic empowerment. There's protecting employees and customer information under the Protection of Personal Information Act and the Promotion to the Access of Information Act, the POPIA. Ultimately, HR compliance is not just about avoiding penalties, which can be significant, but it's also about creating a workplace where people can perform at their best while the business remains protected and working and functioning optimally. So that's a lot, but essentially that kind of is nutshelling what HR within the travel, tourism, and hospitality industry in South Africa looks.
Yes, it's definitely a lot. And I think it's really an important conversation that we're having today because this, what you're saying is really, it's a lot to take in. I think it's really important for our listeners to, first of all, take a deep breath and not get overwhelmed because you're operating in a business that provides services and support, which I'd like to get a little bit into. But before we dive into how you can support agencies and travel agencies, basically, I love that you spoke about how the benefits of this is not just being compliant, because obviously compliance is important. And the travel industry, like we said in the beginning, understands the importance of being compliant when it comes to the environment. You spoke a little bit about the benefits of a sustainable workplace for employees. I'd love to talk a little bit more about the benefits and why we should be doing this for our staff and focusing on HR. And through HR in general, you're actually focusing on your employees' well-being. So I'd love to talk a little bit about the benefits that come from connecting with you for HR for the employees?
Yeah, so as LabourNet, we assist employers or business owners in obviously creating environments that are safe for their people, environments that are fair and that are according to legislation. There are a lot of additional benefits to the employees when businesses are compliant. So one of those things really is in the skills development side. If a business is paying 500,000 Rand or more annually on salaries, then they're also paying a percentage of that in SDL or skills development levy. So what businesses can do is go through the process of applying for grants to the CATHSETA in this industry that we're talking about, where they can then get funding to send their people for upskilling, for additional certification, health and safety certificates. There's the aspect of upskilling, and when we as employers upskill our people, they're going to stay with us for longer. So the employee turnover starts to slow down as well, which means employees are happier, they're being upskilled, they're learning, they're improving their skills. And that has a direct effect on the business itself as well. There are other things like an employee knowing what is in their contract. Their working conditions are governed and guided through policies. They know what their expectations are. They feel safe in their work environment. And it's easier for them to focus on what's important. That's essentially keeping your clients happy. So there are a lot more, but that's kind of the two main aspects that one can look at when talking about compliance and the benefits to employees as well.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate you speaking about safety because, psychological safety in a workspace looks like being able to feel comfortable to do your job, to ask questions, to know exactly what you need to do. And it's a really important part of having a job to have that psychological safety because these are then definitely going to be benefits that are going to contribute towards retention of your staff. Hiring a new staff member is so expensive to the company on so many different levels. So absolutely. And that's why I wanted to ask this, just to highlight the importance of sustainability when it comes to your staff and your employees. So thank you so much for your answer. Really insightful and really brilliant. So, in the beginning, you spoke about a lot of different things. So, let's break it down as simply as you can is how do you support small to medium businesses? What does it look like working with you? What is the outcomes?
Sure. So, I often remind business owners that compliance should be viewed as an enabler rather than a barrier. Very often it's a grudge purchase, having to go through, these different hoops in order to be compliant. And the mistake that many SMEs make is thinking compliance only becomes relevant once they're larger. So in reality, the earlier you build a good foundation, the easier it is to grow, and ignorance of the law isn't a defense. So saying you didn't know isn't good enough. For example, having standard employment contracts, clear workplace policies, basic health and safety procedures, legal appointments, POPIA compliant information processes. And a simple employee record keeping system, it doesn't slow a business down. It actually creates consistency and reduces risk. So my advice is always to hand these functions over wherever possible. Now, employing someone to run this for you is one option. Keep in mind that then there's obviously outside of the salary, there's the benefits, there's leave, there's all these things that come with it. And having someone full time is definitely an option. Why many businesses choose to partner with LabourNet is because there's a fixed monthly retainer, which is much lower than having to pay, someone full time. We run that process for you, but also you have within different facets of compliance a specialist that works within that specific field. So whether that's information compliance, whether that's health and safety, whether that is labor law, we have specialists that are specifically focused on specific fields. So we're not generalists. So businesses can budget. They know exactly what they're going to pay monthly. It's all inclusive service within these specific areas. Like I mentioned, transformation like BEE, the Employment Equity Act, skills development, health and safety, payroll, labor law. Compliance doesn't have to be complicated. It simply needs to be deliberate and consistent. So the way owners can focus on creating amazing travel experiences while knowing that the legal essentials are being managed in the background is either by partnering with firms like ourselves or even companies who have an HR working within the company use us as an extension of their function. So we can assist with issues like disciplinary procedures, the CCMA representation, all the not so nice things is where we also then come in. So the HR within the business can focus on employee health, employee benefiting, working at the company.
Wonderful. And it's what you are doing at LabourNet is really important because, as you mentioned and hit the nail on the head, is there's specialists there. If we look at travel agents or travel industry professionals, the circle of competence for them is within the travel industry. Look, they are brilliant because they know, for example, if you need to get to one destination and then there's a boat that you have to take to the second destination, that is why they are professionals. That's why they sit at that end of the seat. But then you're speaking about outsourcing this, having a specialist in your company. So you've been in business for such a long time that you really are the experts in this. And having the ability to outsource this as a retainer to do employee contracts, record keeping, and so much more is so important. You're really, really doing fantastic work.
Thank you, Simone. LabourNet's been around for 35 years, so we operate in every province of the country as well. And look, there are great HR professionals in South Africa. We have immensely qualified professional HR business partners, HR administrators that do the job really well. And very often they make the decision of partnering with LabourNet to just fill in the gaps where their experience might not be 100% focused on, let's say, something like BEE, which is a minefield to try and navigate and try and get the BE certificates. So if that's not their speciality, then they reach out to LabourNet. We assist them with that, and we don't have to take over the entire function, and they can focus on what they're really good at and what they're really experienced at. And the business owners can focus, like you said, on what they're really good at and what they enjoy. And that's offering one-of-a-kind, world-class experience to tourists and people who visit South Africa.
I agree with you. And I like that you're saying it's an additional support for the current HR function. And exactly that is, you don't want a business that's running without an HR person. Then that's where we're going to see things falling through the cracks. So it's definitely amazing that you guys are specialists. So fantastic. Looking again at HR as this definitely an overwhelming idea for a lot of people. And I really appreciate how you're speaking about this in different terms and a different lens to look at this. For the people who are listening to this right now, who feel completely buried by the administrative weight of HR, do you have one piece of wisdom for them to start with before they would then reach out to you?
That's a good question. So there's so much to address. I'll kind of break it down into a two-part answer. Firstly, my advice would be look in the top of your closet. You know that part of the closet where you just throw things, where that you kind of, you have it, you never really use it, you throw it in the top of the closet and forget about it, and you kind of, hesitate to actually peer there into that part of the closet. So, operators listening right now who feel completely buried by this administrative weight, open that closet, look in, and, get to the point where you understand the risks, where you as a business need to focus. And, at a surface level, there's a lot of things you can do, but start systematically addressing the risks. So what we do at LabourNet is we offer a absolutely free compliance gap analysis or an audit. We'll come to you, we'll sit down, we'll go through the different facets where you need to be compliant. We'll touch on kind of on a surface level, just high level, what we need to look at so that you are aware of where those risks are. What you choose to do with those, that's entirely your choice as a business owner, but at least then you are aware of these risks. And we can kind of then decide whether you want to, address this with the person currently running your HR, whether you want to get LabourNet or a different company or firm to assist you with that. But at least then So that's my first piece of advice, is just be aware, open the doors, look inside and know where you need to be covered. So many business owners become overwhelmed. They look at compliance as an enormous project, but it's easier to just ignore the risk and kind of, put your head in the sand. But that could lead to major issues down the line. Fines, barriers to selling the business, if you ever get to that. A reputational damage is major. Whether we want to accept it or not, compliance does affect the bottom line of the business as well. So start with the fundamentals, make sure employees have contracts, ensure your policies are documented, that you have accurate records, invest in staff training, understand the obligations around employment equity, skills development, health and safety, which is also major, and data protection. I think this is something I want to touch on, especially within our industry, that, the hospitality and the travel and tourism industry, data protection is a big issue. Travel businesses collect significant amounts of personal information from passport details, contact information, payment records, travel itineraries. Many businesses still see, the protection of personal information act as an IT issue rather than a business-wide compliance responsibility. So the trend we're seeing globally and locally is greater accountability around how personal information is collected, stored, shared, protected, disposed of. And businesses need clear policies around this. They need staff training. They need secure storage practices. They need the proper policies. It's no longer enough to just have customer information sitting in multiple spreadsheets. We need to have everything systematized. So the organizations that build proper data management systems and do so now, sooner rather than later, will be better positioned in the future, really, especially as regulatory expectations become even more rigid and stringent. So start with the fundamentals. The POPIA manual submissions are due end of this month. It's not too late to get those sorted out, but there's a couple of things, but start at a point and work through. So number one, reach out to me. Let me come and do a quick audit for you and at least give you an indication of where those risks are, and then at least But that would hopefully that kind of nutshells it a bit for you.
It's a brilliant answer and amazing that you are giving the analysis to people for free. Because that is a huge step. And one of the first steps you said is that people need to do it themselves. And as valuable as that piece of information is looking at that cupboard and the jerseys are still busy falling out while I'm trying to shove it back in. It's obviously not something that people want to do. It's very intimidating. And it's amazing that if they do feel brave enough to attempt to look at that, please do use that bravery and go ahead and do it. But now you're saying that you can actually hold their hand and go through it with them is really, really fantastic. You're doing important work that makes it's the foundations of a business. And it is so important. And because a lot of people see it as things that they don't want to do. And thank you for bringing this to my listeners' attention.
Yeah,
Last question is, how can people reach out to you? How can people find you? I will put all the details in the episode link, but how can people find you?
So my number recently changed, so it's good that you ask. So they can either send me an email, very easy, hkruth@labournet.com, and that's HKRUTH@labournet.com. Send me an email, let me know, where you're based, and if it's outside of the Western Cape, then we can have one of our other consultants come and see you anywhere in the country. If it is in the Western Cape, I can come through and come have a look at your business and the compliance matters. Or you can give me a call on 066 275 9525. I'm happy with the WhatsApp as well. Simone, as a last closing note on my side, if there's anything else you want to touch on, I'm more than happy to kind of go a bit more deeply into it. But, the travel industry is built on trust. We spend a great deal of time earning the trust of our clients and having, recurring visitors in the country, but compliance reminds us that we might also learn and maintain the trust of our employees, regulators and stakeholders through this process, and that's what sustainable business is all about. Sustainability is a major thing in South Africa. Nature you mentioned, but business equally as important. So keeping that trust and making sure that we run a sustainable business is really what LabourNet is there to help you with and to assist and support you with as you build on what's important for you.
Absolutely. If there's anything I've learned from this conversation today is that the benefits of being compliant are more than just being compliant. And I think that's something that a lot of people need to understand and realize, that it's not just a box you need to tick off. It's not just a boring task you need to complete. It's really something that is crucial for your business. And thank you so much for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for taking your time for us today and having a seat at the table. It's been such a pleasure to have you. So thank you so much, Henry, for joining us.
Simone, it was great to catch up again, and thank you for having me. This was an absolute pleasure, and I appreciate the time and the opportunity to speak to you about these important issues.
Amazing. And until the next episode, to my listeners, thank you for your time. Be safe and have fun.